this video, we're going to be discussing the history of meditation. In the book, it is just past the anatomy of meditation section, just at the beginning. Now, this is a bunch of research I've done and compiled into a little brief summary of the most important parts. So I don't have any of this memorized personally, but I'm gonna read through all the sections together with you, and I'll throw a bunch of graphics and stuff up on the screen to better explain some of the things I'm talking about and just add a bit of visual aid to assist you. Beginning with how old is meditation? In some of the oldest written records from around 1500 BCE in India, the practice of dhyana or jhana is referenced as the training of the mind, often translated as meditation. Many of these records come from the Hindu traditions of Vedantism and discuss the various meditation practices across ancient India. Buddhist Indian scriptures and texts dating back to only a few hundred BC are even earlier recordings of the practice, but many argue that these are somewhat ambiguous in their references directly to meditation. In China, early forms of meditation are referenced as far back as the 3rd and 6th century BC and linked to the Taoist Lao Tzu, an ancient Chinese philosopher, and his writings. Other writings from the early centuries that describe meditative practices include the Zhuangzi from the late Warring States period, roughly 476 to 221 BC, and the Naiye from 4th century BC. The reality is, no one knows for absolute certain when meditation officially started. It could be as old as humanity itself. There are multiple references across different cultures and religions, including Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, to meditative-like practices, which all seem to have contributed to and informed the practice known widely today. Moving on to where did meditation originate? The earliest written records come from Hindu traditions in India of Vedantism from around 1500 BCE. Vedantism is a school of philosophy and is one of the earliest known Indian paths for spiritual enlightenment. Other forms of meditation are then cited around the 6th and 5th centuries BCE within Taoist China and Buddhist India. The precise origins are heavily debated, especially around Buddhist meditation. Some early written accounts of the different states of meditation in Buddhism in India can be found in the Sutras of the Pali Canon, which dates back to the 1st century BCE. The Pali Canon is a collection of scriptures from the Theravada Buddhist tradition. India, Vedantism, and yogis. The oldest documented images of meditation are from India and date back to 5000 to 3500 BCE. Wall art paintings depict people sitting in meditative-like seated postures with their eyes half closed, presumed to be deep in meditation. The oldest documented text of meditation is also from India, from the Hindu traditions of Vedantism, from around 1500 BCE. Although the Vedas created texts describing meditative practices, it's important to know that these had previously been passed down orally through storytelling practices for centuries. And alongside the Vedic practice, Hindu traditions also describe the yogi's practice of meditating in caves. It is believed that many modern practices of meditation stem from this lineage, including the modern yoga movement, whose techniques are predominantly based on the Hatha yoga practice. Although it's good to understand that the origin of these techniques is based in meditation for spiritual development, not the common practice of stretches and movement many Western schools teach today. So yeah, the original purpose of the asana and the physical part of yoga was to allow people to be able to sit more comfortably and longer in meditative postures. History of meditation in the West. Meditation first began to be of interest in the West in the 1700s, when some of the Eastern philosophical texts containing references to meditation techniques and practices were translated into different European languages. This included the Upanishads, a collection of religious and philosophical texts from India assumed to have been written between 800 and 500 century BCE. The Bhagavad Gita, a Sanskrit scripture made of 700 verses that form part of the Mahabharata, a Hindu epic detailing the narrative between Pandava Prince Arjuna and Krishna. And the Buddhist Sutras, scriptures that are assumed to be the oral teachings of the Buddha. By the 18th century, meditation was seen only as a topic for discussion and interest by philosophers and intellectuals, including Voltaire and Schopenhauer. It wasn't until the 20th century that meditation became more prominent, especially in the United States, when a prominent yogi, Swami Vivekananda, delivered a presentation at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago. The presentation created a surge of interest in Eastern models of spirituality in the West and influenced a number of spiritual teachers from India to migrate to the States, including Swami Rama from the Himalayan Institute, Parahamsa Yogananda from the Self-Realization Fellowship, and Maharishi Mahesh Yogi with his transcendental meditation practice. So my recommendation, if you want to learn more about the history of meditation, or just get more acquainted with the beginnings of the practice, stuff like that, is to definitely read a couple of the books that I noted in the section there. I have my copy, the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita behind me, and they've been very enlightening to read. You can read them over and over again. You could literally do a whole course on just each one. So my recommendation, pick up a copy of those, get to reading.